So early in the morning, I got up like 4:30, 5 o'clock. Kids got up somewhere around 4:30 and drove us crazy all morning. Finally got them off to daycare, and it's barely sun up here. There's some birds flying. So we're going to do a little bit of fertilizing today. And I usually use 10-10-10, but 10-10-10 locally has been impossible to get without special ordering it and paying like $50 for a 40-pound bag. This is like $17 or $18, 12-0-12. So this is just going to have to do until maybe things get easier to get. So there's about 2 cups, a little bit more. So I've already fertilized a lot of things, and some things I'm going to put just a little more on, like pawpaws. One of the recommendations is to fertilize 4 times a year, stopping in June. So we're going to see what else we can put this stuff on. There's a lot of things we didn't get to fertilize last month when we bought fertilizer, because we only bought 40 pounds. So it'd be nice if we could buy like 120 pounds or more each month and figure out where things go. But yeah, potted avocado and citrus trees and all, we're just going to put, a couple teaspoons or a couple tablespoons just in the pot there. We don't want to give it a full fertilizing, because it could burn or even kill the plant, if you do too much in the container. It's too concentrated. So yeah, just a couple teaspoons or so for each one. Oh wow, every day we're getting more and more flowers opening up on the Tennessee seedling pawpaw. And yes, I'm doing the fertilizing every month on this, as far as I can tell. Hard to get it to focus sometimes, but there's some really nice big flowers right there. Yeah, if I had like hundreds of pounds of fertilizer, I would probably be fertilizing on like a lot of these elderberries. I would selectively chop, so much, and then just pile on the fertilizer, and just see how much more productive they would be with fertilizer. Not many people fertilize them because they just come up wild, and wherever they're happy, they will like get 12 feet high or more. That up there is probably 14, 15 foot high. Although a lot of people would chop them to the ground every year and just have new green growth. There's morning glories and stuff kind of entangled in this elderberry, but yeah. Our old pineapple guavas were month 2 we're fertilizing again. Now I've heard some people say every other month you can fertilize them, but these guys are just, and so they've been like goat damaged and neglected, so we're trying to just power feed them and hope that it pays off, because these guys should have been producing fruit 5 or 6 years ago, but now we're paying for it by having to revitalize, reinvigorate everything. The good news is that a lot of things that we heavily fed last month, we're still going to feed a lot of those things just a little bit more to try to get more growth. But a lot of things like these, like taro, we just put a little tiny bit of, a teaspoon or something around them, and sugar cane and little figs and stuff in the raised bed here. So hopefully we have enough to do everything that the major stuff is taken care of. What I find interesting is this is a sucker, a persimmon sucker, probably an American persimmon rootstock that I planted back here in the wetlands. And it has already got its own sucker right there. So a sucker producing another sucker within like 2 years or so being planted out here. So we might have grafting rootstock here if we can routinely get suckers to transplant. And this one obviously took off pretty well. I've had some before that didn't. But yeah, that's a good idea, because each sucker we can use for grafting another type of persimmon onto. So this mayhaw here is a late riser, and it's right beside this one that's already bloomed and already has some mayhaw berries on it that aren't ripe yet. we really need to reinvigorate this guy because it's genetically different. But that's not the only reason I'm showing you the mayhaws. If you've seen my mayhaw video, you can see that I have two that are genetically the same or more, you know, from this single one here. Two pretty nice size ones. As you can see, sometimes the young ones have thorns on it. Pretty nasty thorns. Usually as they get older and more mature, they lose the thorns. At least that's what I'm seeing here. I would be surprised if there's a single thorn on this, you know, this big giant shrub or whatever you want to call it. I guess you'd call it a tree, but it's not quite tree size, I would say. Just a giant shrub right now. But because, I mean, this will probably, you know, make sense for pawpaws too. Anything that root suckers, you know, you're kind of sucking nutrients from the suckers, you know, from the main tree. You're taking nutrients from the main tree. So you might as well just fertilize the suckers as well a little bit. So, I mean, there are actual roots, you know, underneath the suckers and in between the mother tree and the suckers. And when next winter, we probably need to either dig these up or just chop the root, you know, the supply from the mother off, you know, when they're dormant, and then let them grow as their own tree, so they're not taking any nutrients from the mother tree. But mayhaws sucker like crazy. One of my other Tennessee seedlings is, you know, leafed out finally. They're not full-size leaves yet, but yeah, we want to encourage these guys to just grow now. So we're gonna fertilize them 4 times or so this year. A little sad Oro Blanca. It's definitely got some new leaves on it, but they do not look the best in the world. Just remember when I fertilized this thing that even though it's that tiny at the top, this is a 5+ year old grafted tree and probably on 2-year-old trifoliate orange. So I'm not going to want to touch the trunk or anything, but I'm going to put, you know, a cup or so again of fertilizer around it and hope that we can put it in growth mode for a while. And I haven't fertilized this pawpaw yet, this either seedling or root sucker. Don't really want to overdo it if it is a seedling and not connected to a mother tree. Just a couple teaspoons or so. That's about it. Meyer lemon needs really to be cleaned up. It's got Spanish moss, greenbrier, and all kinds of stuff growing in and around it. Passion flowers coming out too. I didn't put too much on here because I did a good fertilizer last month. But I just want to show you something. We had like a pine tree hit one of the limbs on the ground, and it's very possible that it is actually self-rooting from where it's like touching the ground for a year or so. I'm just gonna leave it like that and see what happens, and if we get more plants or trees from it, that's just gonna be a plus. Kind of how like walking irises self-root, not from something holding them down, but they just their limbs or leaves or whatever that are really long just kind of droop, and they'll eventually touch soil in places, and that place they droop down to the ground will root, and then they'll create another plant and it'll droop again somewhere else, and that's why they call them walking. Like it's like one leg is one leaf, walk, root, walk, root, and then before you know it, you have a whole patch. I had a lot of sugar cane planted along this fence row a long time ago, and some come back every, you know, year, and then a couple of them didn't come back. So after like 5 or 6 years, the last one just failed to come back. But this is a nice little fence to grow something like that on. We probably need to amend the soil, make a slight mound here if we were going to do that, but I don't think I have plans to do that here anymore, because I got a wetlands, you know, project with pretty good sunlight that I plan to make like a mound and do sugar cane on. So I got this really thick elderberry kind of just growing in the middle of whatever. Have no idea what genetics this is. I'm just gonna put a cup of fertilizer here and see what happens. I do have some extras and a little extra fertilizer, and I think I fertilized pretty much everything for right now. And yes, the things that I already put in the ground, I'm not really gonna fertilize until they're more established. And I'm not really gonna fertilize the muscadines right now because I need to redo all the muscadines. I don't know if I'm going to do it this year, next year, or what. I need to prune them way back, get cuttings, and root them into the raised bed. That means I got to have a lot of dirt to, root everything in, and then I can see if it's something I'm willing and have time to tackle. All right, so one whole cup, one big elderberry plant here, and the dog is going crazy here. There's 2 stalks, but that's fine. We'll let it be 2 stalks. And does it have any flower heads on it yet? I really don't want to break it to see, but can't really see any forming yet. But there'll probably be some formed in the next week or so. So this will be our little experimental one. Is this going to produce more flower heads? Are they going to be bigger berries, bigger? Who knows what it's going to do. It already looks like it's a monster in the making. Yeah, I think we only used about half of the fertilizer, maybe a little bit more, so we'll have some more fertilizer to put on something in a couple weeks or next month, and maybe it'll be enough to do all of our pawpaws next month. We'll see. It'd be nice not to have to buy more fertilizer.